Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, my name is LJ and you're watching NoClutch Garage. Today what we're doing is actually very simple. We're going to be unboxing one of my packages and we're going to be installing it on my friend's car. Now I'm using my friend's car kind of as a dummy car in lieu of my car because we have the same engine. Obviously his is also a 340, so I'm going to show off this product on his car. So let's get to it. So what I actually ordered is an intake, and it's an intake by CTS Turbo. If you've heard of that company, they're actually pretty well known. They released an air intake for the B58 a while back, and that was actually my first choice for aftermarket intake. But for some reason, I never got around to buying it. Instead, I got a BMS intake, which was the first intake that I bought, and I think I got that one used, and I'm pretty sure that's why I bought it, because it was so cheap. It was like $100. And then I went and sold that and bought the AP intake because somebody was selling it for really cheap again. And I actually like the AP intake. For my particular setup at the time, I had to get rid of it and go back to stock airbox. And then my turbo blew up. And when my turbo blew up, I switched over to my Big Boost turbo. And at that time, I had already sold my AP intake, so I didn't have an aftermarket intake, and the stock airbox wasn't fitting well in there with the brand new manifold. So I reached out, and my friend was gracious enough to send me his intake, and basically all I had to pay for, I think, was just the shipping. So I got another BMS intake. And then I just recently sold my BMS intake because I decided to change a few things around, and I went ahead and pulled the trigger on the CTS Turbo intake. Now this is the first aftermarket intake I actually saw and I actually like. So if you go to their website, they actually have some of the information on there. And one of the things that first stuck out to me was the 6-inch velocity stack air filter, which is a really good thing, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. Of course, the pipe is 3.5 inches, as that's pretty much the standard for the intake and exhaust piping for the B58. They placed the MAF sensor basically in the same orientation and the same position that the stock intake does, so there would be no changes there. They also have a heat shield, which is something that a lot of people complain about with the BMS intakes, as the BMS intake just kind of retains the bottom of the airbox filter, and some people feel like it's not enough heat shielding. I haven't really tested that enough to kind of notice any difference between all of these intakes, but I can say I never had any overheating issues with any of my open air intakes. In fact, the only time that I really noticed my IATs go up was when I would be at the drag strip, and at that point I would just pop open my hood and let the engine cool down a little bit. Apart from the fact that MHD has some really cool features for engine cooling, and some of those are specific for track use. But the thing that really caught my eye is that CTS Turbo is actually claiming 12 to 20 horsepower gains depending on the fuel you're using and the elevation, without any more tuning. Now obviously this is not something that I can verify, as I don't really have a dyno available to me to really, be able to put that to the test, but I'll take their word for it. I already know that intakes on these cars don't particularly do much for performance, but they do help with throttle response, and in the case of a big turbo, it could actually make a big difference in how much air you're actually pushing through the turbo. So enough of that, enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and look at the thing. Let's go ahead and go through the parts, and then we'll go outside and install it. And the first thing that I saw is this white box. Bubble wrap. Oh, okay. Here are a few little clips. I'm not sure what these are for yet. And this right here is the air filter. And as you can see, this is a pretty big cone, so we'll leave this out right here. We have some heat shielding and nice little CTS Turbo right there into the aluminum. Put this to the side. Some extra heat shielding. We got some couplers, and these have CTS Turbo on them. Put them to the side. We have the intake pipe, and this is just the top part, so it's gonna go just like that. Put it to the side. It's made out of aluminum, so it's really good. Looks like really good quality. And then we have a bag, and I think this is the final bag. And this is gonna have some, they look like seals, so I'm assuming these line the heat shields. We have the back of the cone filter, some braces, and more of that seal stuff. And then we have some hardware. All right, so before we can get this out there to the car, we're gonna do a few things in preparation to that. But I wanna talk about this first. So this cone is open like that, and of course this part goes right here. And this is what they're talking about, the velocity stack. So on a regular filter, and I don't really have a filter to show you guys, but for example, a BMS filter or an AP intake filter, they're more squared out and they kind of come into the hole, right? So they would come in through here. But if you feel inside, this part wouldn't be quite as rounded as this. This is the velocity stack that they're talking about. So basically what this does is it's gonna allow the air to come in more freely. And so as a consequence, the air is gonna be less turbulent right at the entrance, and you're gonna be able to flow in more air because of that. Think about air coming in, right? So if air is coming in straight, you'll have some air that comes in straight, but if this was squared out, you would have some air that kind of comes right here and it crashes. And since it's going in anyway, it's gonna deflect out to the side, but you gotta realize that that effect will happen all around. So the air will crash right here and be deflecting. And so the air intake is not gonna be as efficient. With a velocity stack, that air is actually routed in with the curves naturally so that more air can make it more efficiently and with less turbulence. So that's going to allow you to have a better intake of air, and that's why they designed this and why I was really attracted to it when I first saw it. So what we need to do first is we're going to take this and we're going to put it in place. There we go. And then we would of course tighten this in, but we're not going to tighten just yet. And we're going to put it to the side right now. So once that's in, then you would grab your small coupler and you would put it over that, and then you would grab your pipe, and that's how that would go. And then this one would go at the bottom and connect to the rest of the intake. Now of course you want your braces right there, but this is essentially how that's gonna go, okay? So I'm gonna put all this to the side. This heat shield is gonna use these little, I don't know what they are, they're like hooks, but basically this is what's gonna help hold this in place. And it's gonna grab onto the shield that's already on the engine, and just gonna add extra shielding so your IAT stay nice and cool. But now we come to this piece, and this piece is the piece that's gonna have all of these right here. So first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna grab our weather stripping, and we're gonna fit this along the top. And this is one of the shorter ones, the shorter weather strips. They're a little bit different in size, but just grab the shortest one, put it on the top. So you see that you have this hanging over. You're gonna go ahead and cut that out. So my blade is really short right now. We're gonna go ahead and cut it. And then save this little piece because you're gonna need it. So we have the top now. Top is in place. You're gonna grab the largest other piece of weather stripping, and you're gonna put it right here on the curved side. And you're just gonna place it all along. And that's how that one's gonna fit. It'll curl a little bit right here. That's fine, don't worry about it. And then the last one is just gonna go right here. It's gonna go right here, so start at the bottom where it ends. And you're just gonna push it in on its way up. And there you go. So now remember, we have this other shield. There is actually the extra shielding that you got. You're just gonna place it right here. And that's basically gonna go there so that when it's sitting down near the engine, it doesn't bump with the other shield down at the bottom and make any noises or anything. So now we have that. We have everything ready now. So now it's time to take it outside and install it. All right guys, we're outside, and the first thing we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna go ahead and remove our stock air box. So as you can see here, we're gonna want to remove all of this, including this piping. And to begin, we're gonna want to remove our MAF sensor. So we're gonna go ahead and take this off. Just pull that back and then press and pull back, and just put it to the side for now. We're not gonna mess with that. And we're gonna go ahead and loosen this, okay? And for this, usually I can use, I think that's a 6mm socket, or you can use your flathead. Today I'm going to use a flathead. And to take off the airbox, you actually have to pull with a little bit of force. So we want to separate the piping, and then the airbox, you kind of just grab underneath, pull up, and it comes off. So now before we put this to the side, we're going to go ahead and remove the MAF sensor from the airbox itself. So go ahead and remove those. So here it is. Go ahead and put it to the side. Make sure you keep track of those. You don't want to lose them. Keep track of the direction which you insert the MAF sensor. You want to make sure that the lettering is facing down when you put your MAF sensor in the new pipe. MAF sensors are also very, very sensitive. Don't touch any of the leads. Just keep your hands back here on this plastic if you can at all times. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the pipe. And the pipe is a little bit tricky to take out because of the way that they have the clamp on them. If you look, the screw that's closing the clamp is kind of facing in, so you're going to have to get a small ratchet and reach in there to try to take it out. If you have a flex screwdriver, you can also do that, and those are the ones that are really long and they kind of flex around, and it's a lot easier to take them off with that. And to take those clamps out, you're gonna want to use a 7mm. That's what BMW uses. So you're gonna use a 7mm socket and a small ratchet. And you guys, I'm really sorry about the angle, but that's the best angle I can get. Once it's loose, you can move it around a bit, and you can move it around so that you're able to get to it easier. Now that it's really loose, go ahead and pull it, and it pulls right out. Alright guys, so that's what that looks like, and that's completely empty now. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. To remove this little guy, which is what we have to do next, you're gonna need a 16mm socket. Now for some reason I don't have a 16mm socket, so we're gonna go ahead and use a 5/8 socket and make sure it's a long one so you can reach in there, and then we're just gonna pull it right out. Alright, and that comes right off. Now the next thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and put our heat shield in there. Now the next thing we're going to do, if you remember, we had these little guys, and these are basically going to be used as holders. So these little guys would go right here, and they'll go like that, and they'll hold the shield in place. So then this shield would come down like this. So then you could do that, right? And I'm not going to put the rest of them in there because this is not my car, and those are really hard to remove. So I'm just putting one in just to kind of show you guys what this would look like. But as you can see, it completely shields from the turbo. And as you saw, this weather stripping's right here, so that if it does move, it's not causing any noise. So now we're going to bring the main shield, and the main shield would go down, and it'll sit right there where that little pin would be, and then down here it would bolt down. Now for some reason my buddy doesn't have the bolt that goes here, so I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do there to kind of temporarily fix it. I might just stick a bolt in there just to hold it in place. In any case, once this is seated right here, we're gonna go ahead and put this back on. So I found a little bolt. I'm just gonna stick it in here. It's not really a big deal that it doesn't have it. All right, we're just gonna put it in place. All right, now this is in place, and we can go ahead and start working on the actual intake itself. All right guys, for this next part, we're gonna go ahead and start getting this coupler on there, and this bottom clamp is gonna be an 8mm clamp, and you're gonna want to use a ratchet. So let's go ahead and ratchet it down. So we're gonna take our piping and go ahead and put it in there. It's gonna be really snug, so you have to be a little bit patient to get this thing all the way around. All right, so now the clamp is in place, and now we're gonna be working with this. And before we do this one, let's go ahead and put the MAF sensor on the pipe. So we're gonna take our MAF sensor, and we're just gonna insert it like so. And of course, the kit comes with the screws, and this little washer actually is supposed to go down here. Now, if you want a cleaner look, I guess you can put it down there. I just decided to put this one back in there. You don't have to, it's up to you. So we're gonna save this little washer, at least for myself. And for this, you're just gonna use the screws provided. Go ahead and put it in there and get it a little bit tightened in, hand tight. And in order to tighten these guys all the way, we're going to use a 2.5 mil Allen wrench. You want to make sure it's not going to be loose. You don't want to have any issues. All right, now once it's bolted in, we can put the pipe on the coupler. And it goes in relatively easy. So it's going to be kind of facing like that. And of course, the cone will go right here like so. And as you can see, the inlet leads right into the cone. This is a pretty large cone. Actually, I really like it. So while the pipe is out, I'm gonna go ahead and make my life easier and go ahead and attach the cone. So now that I have it how I wanted, let's go ahead and finish up the intake installation. Alright guys, and the last part is going to be plugging in our map sensor. Bam. And just like that, we have our new intake installed, and your engine bay now looks a lot better. Now I will say, I like that red and black accent with this particular car, just because this car is red. But I like it. I like how it looks. I like how aggressive it is. I like the fact that it's actually functional, you know? Oh, and one last thing I forgot. I'm sorry. Now I have this connected, but we need to clamp this one down that goes to the velocity stack. This big clamp. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten it. There we go. And now we're done. All right guys, now we're done with the installation. Now the next thing to do is we're gonna go out and drive it. All right guys, now we're in the car. And just right off the bat, I can already hear the turbo whistle a lot louder. Oh man, I don't know that the camera will do it any justice, but it really does sound really freaking good. Oh, I don't have any gas. I need to go fill up. Let's pause it real quick. All right, now we're back. And out. So I'm actually driving to meet up some people right now, but I wanted to take this time to kind of listen to the car. Oh man, I really hope the video catches those little noises, because it sounds so good. Is really bringing out the turbo sounds. I don't know if that me opening the window helps. But you can hear the turbo whistle pretty loudly. Y'all hear that? Sounds so good. Throttle response is actually improved. I mean, I can literally feel it. And I know it's kind of, it's not saying much on a stock turbo, because these turbos tend to spool up really fast. These new twin scroll turbos are really good, but I'm willing to bet that I would see a bigger difference on a big turbo. So now I'm kind of excited to try this out on my car. And it sounds so good inside the cabin too. You can hear that constant whistle, and when you let off the gas, you can hear the little whistle go. I really like that. Anyway guys, this is where I'm gonna end my video. I hope that this video helps you learn a little bit more about this intake, a little bit more about what a velocity stack does, and I definitely do recommend this intake. It sounds very nice. Any company can make claims about their intake, and that's fine, but CTS is actually one of the only companies that I see that actually post some kind of numbers on there. I know the BMS intake claims about 8 horsepower gain, which isn't much, but you know, 12 to 20 horsepower, that's saying a little bit something. And even if you didn't get that horsepower, it still sounds really, really good. At the end of the day, it comes down to personal preference. There are some guys that are diehard believers in the closed airbox intake, and that's fine. They do offer cooler IATs in general. My IATs always tend to be really cool. So for example, right now I'm sitting at a light and the temperature outside is about 78 degrees, and right now my IATs are 93 degrees Fahrenheit. And once I get moving, my IATs are dropping now. 89, it was 87 earlier, but yeah, they stay around in the 80s on a 70-degree day, so not bad at all. So again, my opinion on cold air intakes still hasn't changed. I think they're okay. You know, people that are worried about IATs, most of the time when you're worried about those things and you want to be very specific about your IATs, those times you're usually at a drag strip, and you know, any change in temperature actually does matter. Even going to the drag strip, what I found is that my IATs stay pretty consistently low, so I'm not too worried about it. I don't tend to heat soak, and I actually have never heat soaked, so I don't have that issue with this engine. But I hope you like this video. Whether you agree or disagree with colder intakes, I hope you're able to follow the steps to put this intake on. If you decide to buy this intake, I think the shielding they provide is perfect, and honestly, this intake kit comes with some great features that I really like. But enough of my rambling. I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and like, go ahead and subscribe, go ahead and share, go ahead and comment, everything. You already know the drill. But that's been it, and I will see you next video.